What's happening, everybody? This is Tiger War Eagle 14, and it's hard to believe that 10 years ago on this day. Now I'm recording this on March 21st, but this and the whole entire documentary is set to be released on April 27th at noon Central Time. Because I want to get these interviews over with, so I don't have to do it live on one day. So. What you're about to see, this is a pre-recorded show, pre-recorded interviews with people that have been both affected and haunted by this horrific tornado in Tuscaloosa. So, 10 years ago today, Tuscaloosa was just nailed by a tornado. So, hope you guys enjoy. This is my first ever documentary I've ever had to make, so I don't expect to do too good on this. I'll try my best, but if I somehow do good, then just, if you want to see more of documentaries like this, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more on the Tiger War Eagle 14 productions. So, coming up, we're going to have our first interview with Stingray. Of course, you've seen Stingray sometimes on the Paul Feinbaum Show and many other channels. He's a former University of Alabama student. Of course, he wasn't at school when the tornado hit, but he's got some things he wants to say about the tornado that happened 10 years ago. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's Stingray to talk about the Tuscaloosa tornado. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, our first guest on this Tuscaloosa tornado documentary is a good friend of mine. His name is Stingray. Of course, if you've heard of Stingray, he's been on my shows the past couple of years. He's also been on the Paul Feinbaum Show, been a notable guest. Stingray, 10 years ago, as we're recording this, today is March 21st, but this is set to be released on April 27th, 2021, marking 10 years since the tornado. So, just seemed like just yesterday, man, we were blindsided by such a horrible tornado.
Yes. And first off, let me say thank you for having me on the show. Absolutely. It is always a blast when we can get together and talk about stuff. So thank you again for having me. And yes, that was a very bad day and a red letter day for Alabama, and will go down as one of the worst natural disasters in Alabama history.
So, yeah, and of course, and the number one question on everyone's mind as we're getting close to this anniversary, and as well as on the day of the anniversary, is the first question I'll ask you. Where were you when Tuscaloosa was blindsided by this tornado?
Believe it or not, I actually was at a friend's house down in Foster's, Alabama. Mm-hmm. And when we saw the tornado coming, we first initially saw it on TV coming through the Knoxville community down in Greene County. And we saw that it was a wedge violent tornado. And at the house that we had down there in Foster's, we did not have a basement or a storm shelter. Mm-hmm. So we actually went a back route through Coker, wound up on Highway 82, and came over here to the house that I'm actually in right now to get in the basement when this tornado was coming through Tuscaloosa. And we did not have any cell service where we were, and especially here because the cell reception was going in and out. So we really did not know when the power went out where the tornado was actually going to go. So we actually went down in the basement and waited it out. And actually we went back to the home in Foster's and found out that the tornado came within 300 yards of the location that we were in.
Wow, 300. Now 300 yards. That's like 3 football fields. Just putting it in comparison. I mean, I can't imagine, because just the other day on Wednesday when we had the tornadoes going on through here, there was one that in this house that I'm in right now, which is my grandmother's. There was a tornado about 2 miles south when it crossed through Coosa County, South Talladega County. So yeah, it's just, but thankfully it wasn't it never touched down or never did much damage at all. But man, where I was, I remember exactly where I was. It seemed like I said just yesterday, 10 years ago, I was a seventh grader in middle school, and
Right.
I was in math class at this point. And people have been saying, we're going to be getting out early. And, back in the day, kids used to say, oh, I hope it's Ben, we get to go, get to go home and stuff. Because, kids don't like school. But I wasn't the guy that didn't like school. I liked it. But
Right.
the day that it happened, we were let out early at about, say, probably noon, maybe 1 o'clock. Because we knew it was going to get bad. And we went home and watched the news. It was around 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon. We were watching Spann because, let's be honest,
Yes.
James Spann is, look, anyone who's been on YouTube and they have never heard of James Spann, yeah, I'm telling y'all, this man is the smartest guy when it comes to weather. I mean, it's no joke. This guy is legit. He is very, very good. Because normally when you see, if you don't watch ABC 3340 based in Birmingham, he would be wearing the overalls if it's a weather day, whether it's a snow day, whether it's like a tornado day or whatever. He'd have the suspenders off, and he would, because sometimes he wore a full suit doing normal weather stuff, but he would have suspenders if it's a bad weather day. So we're watching Spann, and we see the tornado, or not, well, not yet, but we're watching the footage of Tuscaloosa. They're showing in an open field, it looked like the tornado was coming down, and then it goes back up. And I watched an interview later on with Lynn Brooks, who works at WVUA Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. She was being interviewed by Weather Channel in a documentary, and hopefully I might get to have her on this documentary here pretty soon. Hopefully so. If not, that's fine. But she described it. She saw it go back up, and she said, it's going to get angrier. And just like that, we saw it come down. It just started spinning and spinning. Then the camera cuts off. So we go back to James Spann. He's looking at the weather map. They're in the double box. And a few minutes later, the camera feed comes back, or a few seconds later, it comes back. Camera pans to the left, and it is a monster. We're talking monster. I mean, and people say on the YouTube comment section, the damage that it did, that was not EF4. It was an EF5 type damage. It was described as an EF4, EF3, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I just remember hearing James Spann going, nobody should be out there. Nobody should be. If you're down sky and all this stuff, I've never heard that much fear in that man's life. All right, in my life ever. I've never heard any fear coming out of Spann, because I mean it's just awful. And because I didn't know, I had never been to Tuscaloosa that much, but I have. Back in 2006, my cousins moved to Tuscaloosa, and when I saw that tornado, I was so nervous. I had no idea where this tornado was. And I tried to call my cousins, and they didn't answer on the first ring. Or not, they didn't answer the first time. But when I called them a second time, my oldest cousin finally answered, and it was her mom, actually. And she told me they were fine. They're in a closet in the bathroom. But thankfully, when I found out later where the tornado was originally, it was they live near Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa High School.
Right.
At the time, they're about maybe 2 miles away from the high school, so they're far away from the damage. They're south of damage. They're fine. So that was good news for me. But when you look on the next day and they're talking about what the destruction did. You like I said earlier, that had to be at least EF5 damage from an EF4 tornado. You never see damage. There was cars everywhere, houses destroyed. That's unbelievable. And of course, if some of you have seen the Roll Tide War Eagle documentary, you'd see Carson Tinker, former long snapper for Alabama, who is now signed with the New York Giants. If he ever joins this documentary, that'd be great. But I don't know if I can get him. But if not, that's fine. But, man, Carson Tinker, great guy. I don't know him, but I can tell he's probably a great guy when he talks to you. But you mentioned that his late girlfriend Ashley Harrison, was unfortunately killed in the tornado while being at her friend's house, and I mean, I can't imagine having to go through that pain. And I can't. I feel awful for him. Still do to this day.
Yes.
I mean, and of course, not just him, but everyone else in Tuscaloosa. They're still haunted to this day. And I remember after the tornado was over, this is like maybe fall of 2011, fall of 2012. We go over there about a year and a half later, and we ride around. We see some of the recovery process, and everything is like you couldn't see the trees. Kind of, they were halfway cut in like a way. They're not all the way to the ground. It's like this. The trees were like sliced in half, and of course they said a Krispy Kreme there got destroyed too, and then they built it back up. So I mean, but fast forward all these years later, and I've driven around Tuscaloosa sometimes with my cousins, and everything's getting right back up there now. Pretty much everything's back up to the way it used to be, but it almost, when they rebuilt everything, I think new roads had to be built, new roads that have never been built on the grass before. That was before it was damaged by the tornado. So that's my experience from the Tuscaloosa tornado. I mean, I wasn't in Tuscaloosa. I was living Childersburg in Talladega County that time. But man, it's still 10 years to this day. I still cannot wrap my mind around those families. I just still feel bad for them to this day. They've lost loved ones. They've lost friends. They've lost even neighbors. I can't even think all about that. It's just hard to think about. So, Stingray, I appreciate you joining me, man, for a few minutes. Of course, we're gonna have more guests on this documentary. I hope soon. I'm hoping to have Gary Harris on soon. So, in case y'all don't know who he is, he's a director at WVUA 23. I'm pretty sure he was there on the day the tornado hit Tuscaloosa, and I'll ask him the same stuff that I've asked Stingray. So, Stingray, again, man, I appreciate you joining me, and we hope to see you again next time.
Thank you, man. I enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. You have a great day.
You too.
We were huddled in this room, and we were surrounded this little television. This is where I've grown up. This is where I have raised a family. And now we were watching on live television the tornado rip through the heart of the city. And that was the first moment for me where you get that weak in the knees moment. It was traumatic.
Right down Skyland Boulevard here and Interstate 5920.
The quietness in the room was amazing. And then the TV went blank. I believe the tornado at that point was about halfway through our city.
All right, this is a life-threatening situation. We have a very large tornado coming right into the center part of Tuscaloosa. This includes our television station.
In that moment, you really don't know exactly what you're going to do. At some point, I started to pray.
This thing's coming right towards the University of Alabama campus. We're going to stay on air as long as we possibly can. We're getting power glitches. A very large tornado on the ground right now.
Then, boom. Just completely gone. Everything went black. So I grabbed my camera and I just started running up flights of stairs in the building. And as soon as I got out of the stairwell, there it was. And all you can do is just look. It's such an overpowering feeling to be eyeball to eyeball with a killer like that. We're seeing the rotation, seeing debris. It's coming over the campus buildings.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tiger War Eagle 14, and I am joined by the current sports anchor for WVUA Channel 23, or not Channel 23, but WVUA 23 in Tuscaloosa. His name is Gary Harris. Now, Gary, from what I understand, you were at the studio in Tuscaloosa on the day of April 27, 2011. But talk about that day in general. Where were you from before, during, and after the tornado?
Well, Reed, as you know, it was in the forecast for bad weather. So Richard Scott, our chief meteorologist, had everybody on high alert that particular day. I came on in to work, planning to do the sports that night at 5 and 6, but it became clear pretty early on that this was going to be severe. So all hands on deck, so to speak. In other words, I was told we're not doing any sports tonight. We're all prepping for severe weather coverage. This tornado is coming. And in fact, you can help us out in news. So I, along with my assistant at the time, Todd Hoyer, grabbed a camera and decided we would go storm chasing, for lack of a better term. And I had a crazy idea, because it was crazy, to go downtown to what is now called the Loft, but was the bank building, the tallest building in town, about 150 feet high. And we climbed all the stairs to the top of the building and went out on the roof. And Reed, I'm going to tell you, we were up there for a little while, and we saw that tornado coming across West Alabama. But probably that view, it's the one that we rappel off of for charity. I rappelled off of it a couple of years ago. It is tall. It's right downtown. When you come across the river from Northport, you see it there on the left. If you're going into Northport, it's on your right. But we could see that tornado coming. I had a camera with me that was not our usual broadcast camera. Well, it was a broadcast camera, but it's one of Tommy Wilcox's cameras, because I used to produce the Tommy Wilcox Outdoor Show, and it was lighter and smaller. So I figured in regards to a tornado that I would grab the smaller camera because it'd be easier to handle. So we're up there and we see the tornado coming, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that thing's devastating. You can see it coming into Tuscaloosa. So I start videoing it. But this camera, because it wasn't quite up to par with our usual cameras, the iris just, because the darkness of the tornado versus the lightness of the sky, the iris just kept opening up. I could still see the tornado beautifully, but I could see that it was fluttering a little bit, but still, after shooting it for several minutes, probably 3 or 4 minutes, I told Todd, I said, this thing's coming straight for Tuscaloosa. We better get off. Can you imagine if they're on top of that building? I said, we better get downstairs in a hurry. So we rushed down the stairs, and while we were going down the stairs, we could hear it. We could hear it coming through Tuscaloosa. It was, it's like what you hear from tornadoes. It was loud. It was a roar. And by the time we got downstairs, because you got to remember, this is a lot of stories. I don't know how many it is, but it's a lot of stories. By the time we got downstairs and got outside the building, you could still hear it, but it had already passed over us. And by that time, it was probably on campus. And as you know, it would hit, it would lift back up, it would hit again. So I saw the thing as well as anybody probably saw it that day. The problem was, because of that iris opening up, we were not able to use that video because it was just fluttering too much, which is a shame. Now, do I think it was dumb of me to go up there in hindsight? Yeah, I do. Would I do it again? No, I wouldn't, because it probably wasn't smart. But again, not having been through a tornado like that until that day, I didn't really know the danger that I was in. But I do hate, after I went all the way up there, that the video was not, usable, because I had an unbelievable vision of that thing coming across the sky.
Yeah, and I remember that day very well too. I was a 7th grader in Childersburg Middle School, and I remember that day very well. The weather was spot on, beautiful. I mean, just not a cloud in the sky for a while, and then as I got to, I think it was 4th period, the clouds got dark in a hurry, and we were told over the intercom that we would be having an early dismissal. And, back then, we were so young and naive. We'd always want to get out of school if the weather gets bad. I mean, whether for snow or, any bad weather. So we get home, we watch the news, and we see James Spann doing his, now we watch James Spann when I were living in Alex City, so we really can't get him. But sometimes now at my grandmother's, we watch ABC now, if I'm at my grandmother's, if there's bad weather. But so yeah, we're watching the news, and we see the funnel begin to form, and then it goes back up. And my dad actually said to my mom, "It's gonna come down. This thing's about to get angry." So as soon as it came right back down, it rotated for a while, and then the camera stopped. So then Span goes to his little radar, and then for about 2 minutes later, maybe a minute and a half, they go back to the camera. The feed's back up. I have never seen, honestly, at the time, I've never seen an actual tornado live. Mm. I was shocked. And
yeah, you're speechless. Same way I was.
Yeah, and I actually have some family that lives in Tuscaloosa. My cousins, and well, thankfully, I mean, I didn't know where that thing was going at the time, so I called my cousins on my mom's cell phone. Or my mom did first, and they said that they were in the bathroom, but thankfully they were nowhere near the path that they were like they're close to Hillcrest High School.
Yeah,
They're nowhere close to the tornado damage. But then afterwards, the next day, you could really see the damage, and it was just I've never seen that much damage in my life. I mean, it looked to me, honestly, even to this day, yes, it was that was an F4 tornado. That was it looked like EF5 damage compared to Moore, Oklahoma, and Joplin, Missouri. But that was just probably the craziest day of my life to this day. And now that we're coming up 10 years later, and of course, this is being pre-recorded because I have to get everything set up as of April the 6th. To this day, it's still the craziest day in weather for sure. Now back to you, your vantage point the next day. What did you do the next day after the tornado hit Tuscaloosa?
Well, obviously, after it hit initially, so I came back to the station after Todd and I had gone up to the top of the towers and saw it coming across the sky. And I get back to the station, and like I said, it had already come through. And we have a tower cam, and we had some other people that were shooting video of it. And you knew it was bad, but then we heard about, large amount of damage, just off campus, just down south of DCH and 15th Street. And so Todd and I said, well, let's go start shooting damage video. So we went down there, and that's when it hit me, the destruction that had occurred just seconds earlier. And, it's still chilling to this day because we were down there, I mean, right on the scene. And I'm telling you, there were still people that were, in the rubble, and you saw the houses completely devastated. And thankfully, it missed DCH, because if it hit that hospital, I don't know how many more people would have been killed. And it basically spread the campus, which is amazing too. But still, the people that it hit, and the lives that were lost. And again, being a sports guy that worked at TV stations, and obviously you keep up with the weather too when you work at local television stations in the South, because it's always a possibility. But I had never seen kind of what you were saying. I'd never seen anything like it. And I hope I don't ever see anything like it again, because it was total devastation. I mean, homes were, I'm not talking about just, they were gone. You know what I mean? Literally gone, wiped from the foundations. Okay,
like a plate.
Vehicles were moved hundreds of yards away from where they sat when that tornado came through. So the next day, you go into the mode of, wow, we got, as a community and as a local broadcast television station, we got to start helping people clean up and get over this thing. And so all of us were involved in cleanup efforts, and it came across 10th Avenue and wiped out, the public housing there. And, it just, wherever it went and sat down, the damage was unbelievable. When it lifted, people were spared. Or, the thing about I learned about a path of a tornado is, when you're in the path, there's no getting away. But if you're just outside the path, like DCH was completely spared. 30 yards to the south of DCH was destruction. That's what's so amazing about it. You're either in the path or you're not. And if you're not, you're okay. But if you're in it, so there can be one side of the road literally that's destructive, and the other side of the road can be no damage.
Yeah, that's, like you said, it's still unbelievable to this day of the damage and the catastrophe it caused, and it's still a blessing. I mean, a lot of people say that there are some people in this world that say there isn't a God, but I can guarantee you God was looking down on DCH Hospital. I mean, that, because you said if it would have hit the hospital, who knows what more of a disaster, or what bigger of a disaster would have been.
I don't even want to think about it. So
but in the days following the tornado, a lot of response from the state of Alabama came to Tuscaloosa, including to Alabama's biggest rivals down in East Alabama, the Auburn Tigers, with Coach Gene Chizik at the time, coming to help out and clean up the damage. I heard the Alabama, yes, we're rivals, one side of the state to the other, but when something like this happens, we have no choice. We've got to come
People
together.
First, Reed, and I hope that's just understood. A sports rivalry, while it's fun and it's good to go back and forth, we're all people, and if we live in Alabama, we're all citizens of this state. So you're right. I mean, something like that, as tragic as it is, I want to be clear on this. I don't think it should take a tragedy for people to realize that. Okay, we should already understand that sports rivalries aren't real life. But if you do need that to put it in crystal clear focus for you, then it will. When that happens, you're not thinking Alabama, Auburn. You're thinking, man, people need help. Our neighbors need help. Let's help our neighbors and our fellow citizens. So yeah, you're right. The outpouring of support from people all over the state, really all over the country, was unbelievable. And if there is a positive that came out of it, because it did happen, and the loss of life is never going to be replaced. Those people that lost loved ones, they're gone forever. But I do think that it gave us people maybe who used to get frustrated when tornado warnings came on, or the weather, the meteorologist came on and blacked out a ball game or blacked out programming, and they're like, oh my God. I think that let us understand why that's done. Okay. You hope I guarantee you all those meteorologists, when they break into programming, Reed, they're hoping that it doesn't hit, but you have to be prepared for it. And I think it gave us an understanding that these weather people aren't coming in and blocking out your programming just to give, to be funny. They're doing it for a reason. And so now I think people are more understanding of that. And then getting back to your original point, I think people are understanding that, when something like this happens, you rally and you come together, and that's what everybody did. So there was some good that came out of it in that regard.
In the days that, of course, followed, again, the few days following, President Obama at the time, he was president of the United States, took a trip down to Tuscaloosa to survey the damage. Of course, Walt Maddox, current mayor, was there with him. And he's a guy from Chicago, Illinois, but I'm sure he felt like I'm not saying he felt like an Alabamian, but he really did feel sorry for those people.
Well, he did a great job. He is our president, or was at the time, and I would say that regardless of, again, that's something, when something like that happens, it's not about party, it's not about conservatives, liberals, all that's out the window. But President Obama came here, and I thought he did a tremendous job of showing support and just showing strength, and just showing, hey, I'm your president, and I care about you. I care about the citizens of Alabama that have been devastated by this tornado. So I thought it was a huge shot in the arm for everybody that President Obama came. And, it wasn't just like he came and got out of a plane for 5 minutes. He spent some time here. He went and visited with people. He went and looked at damage sites. I mean, he really, I thought, did a terrific job of doing what I think the president should do when people in this country are in need and have been through a natural disaster. The president needs to be on the ground reassuring them that everything's going to be okay. And I thought he did a terrific job of that.
Yeah, and of course, again, this is being pre-recorded a few weeks in advance before the 10th anniversary of Tuscaloosa's tornado. But 10 years later, looking back now, just looking back then and looking at now in Tuscaloosa, because when I was younger, we'd go look at the damage. Me and my mom and our cousins and my aunt, we'd go right around downtown to see the process of the rebuilding process. 10 years later, I drove down there myself, and I just think, imagine, there was, if you look at it now, it looks like a tornado never came through.
Yeah, it does.
It took down a Krispy Kreme. It took down a bunch of different businesses, homes, and over the course of 10 years, new homes and properties have been made. And, we're forever grateful for our Alabamians who come together and rebuild from the foundation upwards. So, Gary, I really appreciate you joining me, man. Thank you for taking your time to join, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, Reed, thank you.
Thank you very much.